like you have good lighting and everything.
You guys are all on.
And action.
All right. Rebecca, you need your countdown?
Yes, please.
Take 25 minutes because I stupidly clicked on another tab. There we go. I thought it was ready. It's inauguration day. She's like, let's do it.
I was ready.
All right, great. All right. With a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Meeting is started. My phone is falling over. Welcome to this regular meeting of the Sonoma City Council on Wednesday, the 20th, January 2021. Getting the year right, so we're all thankful for that. We'll go ahead and start off by calling this meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all. Felt like I skipped a line there, but I think I got it all in. Great. So if you're just joining for the first time, I just would like to welcome you to our Sonoma City Council meeting. We are doing things a bit differently, or I guess really it's kind of the normal way we've been doing things for the past year now, because we are participating through Zoom. If you're on Zoom, just through the app, there's just the difference here is if we do public comment. And so as you're going to be making public comment on Zoom, just raise your hand. The first public comment that we're going to have is our open public comment session. So if you're here to comment on something that's on the agenda, let's say you wanted to comment on the dispensary thing, you got to wait until that item comes up. But our first public comment is going to be for items not on the agenda. Raise your hand through Zoom, or if you're calling in, dial *9, and we'll go ahead and announce you. You'll have 3 minutes to speak, and we'll time. Rebecca, if you can do timing today, just because I don't. Yep. My phone is my computer right now. I'm experiencing pretty extreme technical difficulties. So if my camera falls over, it's because my phone is on a book right now. Anyway. The other thing that could happen is we get Zoom bombed. It hasn't happened yet, but if it does happen, we'll stop the meeting and try to restart it. No action will be taken during that interim period. If we can't restart the meeting, then we'll go ahead and start it another day. Other than that, the other note is you are participating in people's homes and their offices. So if members of this council or members of staff feel inclined or have a need to turn off their camera, we will allow them to do that. However, they will not be leaving the room without letting us know. And that's kind of how it's going to work. So we'll go ahead and move on. I still don't have the agenda up. My computer is going so slow. So we'll move on to, what do we got? Public comment?
Roll call? Would you like to do a roll call?
Oh yeah, we'll do a roll call vote. There we go.
Okay. Councilmember Harrington?
Present.
Vice Mayor Agramonte?
present.
Councilmember Dean?
Present.
Councilmember Henley?
Present.
Mayor Harvey?
Present.
Thank you. Next up is approval of agenda, Mayor.
Great. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Great. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Harrington?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Agramonte?
Aye.
Councilmember Dean?
Aye.
Councilmember Henley?
Aye.
Mayor Harvey?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
All right, great. So moving right on, we'll go ahead and move to public comment. At this time, members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda. It is recommended that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Under state law, unless otherwise permitted under the Ralph M. Brown Act, the merits of the matters presented at this item cannot be discussed or acted upon by the City Council. At this time, for items appearing on the agenda, the public will be invited to make comments at the time the item comes up for council consideration. Upon being acknowledged by the mayor, please step to the podium and speak into the microphone. Rebecca, you're gonna have to do that because I can't see the participants. Thank you.
Okay. So first up, Mayor Harvey, is Terry Shore.
Good evening, Mayor Harvey, council members, city manager and staff, and members of the public. My name is Terry Shore. I'm with Greenbelt Alliance, and I'm a longtime resident of Sonoma Valley. I have two wildfire items I wanted to bring up with the council and staff. Greenbelt Alliance is investigating and documenting the critical role of Greenbelt in wildfire prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery, all together being wildfire resiliency. Protected greenbelts are growing in importance as a wildfire resiliency tool with multiple benefits. I would like to be able to speak with a staff or appropriate council member at the City of Sonoma regarding Shockin Hill and the Overlook Trail, and whether that greenbelt provided benefits to the city when we had the fires coming over the hill from Napa. So that's just a request, and to see whether or not, you know, or who I could speak to about that. Maybe it's a fire marshal. So that I realize we'll have to take offline, but I would love to explore that with the city. And secondly, I read in the newspaper, as probably many of you did too, that the County of Sonoma is considering a countywide sales tax measure, possibly in November, for wildfire prevention and firefighting. And I would just urge the City Council to watch that and maybe provide your input as to how you would like to see that measure go. I know that Greenbelt Alliance and our allies would like to see some of that funding allocated for things other than just the critical response, but for prevention and things such as best management practices for veg management, maybe home hardening, and possibly some other funding allocations. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Next is, it's Mark Bodenhammer with the Sonoma Valley Chamber of Commerce.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Cool. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Mark Bodenhammer with the Sonoma Valley Chamber of Commerce. I just wanted to come on quickly to pass along my friendly congratulations to Rachel Hundley, and thank you for your service on the council. Really do appreciate all of your work. I think you were the person actually when I got my job that called me and took me out for a drink at the Fitz, and that was really cool. And I really do appreciate all your efforts on the arts programming, and especially your work on the Economic Recovery Subcommittee. That was super helpful, and you were a real advocate for our business community throughout this COVID thing. So thank you. I'll miss your inquisitive nature and look forward to seeing what you have in store next.
Okay. Next is Amy Jenkins. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. That's Fred. It's got Fred Alabuck.
Hi, I'd like to second Mark's comments and honor Rachel's service here to the city of Sonoma. I remember when she first got here, and I've always appreciated her thoughtful ways of looking at things. And, you know, it's impressive when someone writes a whole ordinance themselves. And so I always respected Rachel's thoughtfulness, and I'd like to honor your service, Rachel, and hope things go well for you in the future.
Fred.
Now Amy Jenkins. Amy, you're on mute. Amy, you're still on mute. We can't hear you.
Hey guys, it's Amy Jenkins, but I didn't raise my hands. I apologize. I don't have public comment. Thank you.
She's still showing her hand raised.
Girl fight.
That appears to be it, Mayor Harvey.
All right, great.
There is
Thank
an
you.
email.
Oh, thank you.
This is from Lynn Marie DeVincent. Honorable Mayor, Council, and staff. I would like to express my gratitude to outgoing Councilwoman Rachel Hunley for her excellent contributions to our community over the 6 years she has served. She was a guiding force from 2014 to 2016 on the City of Sonoma's rent control ordinance battle between the owners of the 3 mobile home parks in the city limits and those of us, mostly seniors, who live in this affordable housing option. Her savvy legal experience was essential to our win. The park owners flew in high-powered attorneys from Chicago and threatened the city with lawsuits. Rachel's fortitude and astute strategies sustained and helped strengthen the city's rent control ordinance. I speak tonight for the leaders of the Tri-Park Committee, Bonnie Joy Caslin from De Anza Moon Valley Park, Gary Herms from Sonoma Oaks Park, as well as all the homeowners in these communities who will be better protected thanks to the wisdom of our city officials, and in particular, Rachel Hunley's intelligence. She also supported the 2018 Sonoma Neighbors for Safe Tech campaign to revise the city's telecom ordinance, which will also be a protection for the future health and well-being of our community. I see in Rachel the same integrity as in women like Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She would be a great Supreme Court judge. Keep up the good work. Rachel, best to you in all your endeavors. Lynn Marie DeVincent.
Thank you, Lynn Marie. Appreciate you reading that, Latanya, as well. Great. We'll move on to meeting dedications. Madeline, you want to start with yours?
Sure, I'll start. I'd like to dedicate this evening's meeting to Henry Mayo, a name I think that is very, very well known here in Sonoma. He passed away, and I'm sorry I can't see how old he was, but he served in the U.S. Navy and served as a radio man on the USS Taluga, and he made lifelong friends in the Navy. He met his wife here in 1952, Diane Johnson. She was a graduate of Sonoma Valley High School. And they moved to Berkeley while Henry attended University of California, and their daughter Meredith was born. They have a son, Henry. He leaves behind Henry, Brian, and also Jeffrey Hollister. He was known as the real estate peddler, because I understand he was very popular in the Kiwanis Club. Diane was a longtime member of the First Presbyterian Church of Santa Rosa, and then longtime members of St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church. He also, of course, was the owner of Mayo Family Winery. He retired in 2009 and took great pleasure in tending his Chardonnay vineyard he planted in 1990. By 1993, he was established as the Mayo Family Winery for single vineyard wines. Henry Mayo passed away December 5. Also, a very dear friend of mine, Helen Fernandez. She passed away at age 95. And actually, Bill Lynch wrote in the paper that she asked him to do her obituary before she passed away. Helen was a part of everything Sonoma. She was a part of the Boys and Girls Club. I know that she owned a business I think it was called Sweet Tooth Cafe on West Napa, directly across from the Sonoma Index Tribune. She had two sons, Barney Jr. and Bill. Her husband's name was Barney. I remember she and I used to share long discussions about American President lines. My father was also in Merchant Marine, so her husband as well. She was also a member of the Visitors Bureau. How I got to know her was with Susan Brigham. The hospital asked us to remodel the skilled nursing facility, and we did that, raised a lot of money to be able to update it. It was kind of interesting. I told Helen, I said, we shouldn't even have to do any fundraising. We just need to give you a table to sit on the plaza and you will just raise all the money, because she knew so many people and so many people wanted to be a part of what she was doing. So she was a dear friend. My husband and I would visit her probably up until her death, maybe 8 months up till her death. She made it to my husband's cookie list, which is very special. So she was really prideful about that. So I really, really miss her, as well as Melissa Evans, who was part of our team to update the skilled nursing facility. Thank you.
Can I make a dedication?
I have one.
I was going to do a dedication to Bob Midgley, but I don't know if this is the same one as you.
Yeah, it's the same as me.
You can go ahead.
Yeah, so I'd like to dedicate tonight's meeting to Bob Midgley. He's a Sonoma Valley High School football coach. He also coached softball as well. Coached at Sonoma Valley High for 25 years and was also a Sonoma Valley High graduate. Really, really wonderful man. Just very kind and giving of his time to the community and to the kids that he coached. Had a number of friends reach out and write really glowing tributes of their experiences with him, and somebody who just really encouraged kids to do their best, to be their best, to grow, and to to keep trying, even if they weren't doing the best at sports. He always wanted them to keep trying and keep getting in there and playing, and he's somebody who was just really loved in the community. There were a number of fundraisers for him. I was reading the article here that there were more than 450 people who showed up for a barbecue dinner that was put on to raise money for his family, his wife and kids who've survived him. And just want to appreciate everything that he gave to this community. There's a lot of folks who came through the high school football program and softball program and got to know Bob, and just he had a major impact on a lot of kids that grew up here in Sonoma. So my best to his family, and definitely somebody who was taken too soon, but just a key member of this community. And so I just want to thank Bob for everything that he's done, and just appreciate him and his life and his family. If you want to say anything, right ahead.
I'd just like to echo that his daughters are the same grades as my daughters, 9th and freshman in college. And my kids were softball players when they were little, and how valuable he was to the community. And, I'm so glad to see the support for his family, and I can't imagine what his wife and daughters are going through right now. But I hope that they're getting as much support as possible from the community, which it sounds like they are. So
I will say there's an effort right now to try to get the new football stadium that's being built at the high school named Midgley Field. While this isn't something that will come before council, it's definitely something I support, and I think it would be great if people want to sign the petition to make that happen. And I hope it is what happens, because I think it's a worthwhile tribute to this man's legacy and the mark that he's had in our community. So I hope that's the result of I hope that is what the stadium is named eventually. I think that would be wonderful.
good suggestion.
Yeah. Okay, on to presentations, I guess. So item 3.1. I don't have a lot written here, David. I'm sorry. I'm supposed to do a presentation for the introduction of our new city manager, David Kiff. And David is somebody who comes to the city of Sonoma with a lot of experience, working both in with Huntington Beach and then now in the city of Healdsburg. He was the interim there and really led that city through COVID response, working with businesses and the county and everybody else. in order to make sure that they did as well as they could coming through COVID. And so I know when we interviewed him, every single one of us was just impressed by both the resume and the intelligence that we were seeing from David, and just the fact that he's worked in the city manager chair before. He has the connections in the county. He's worked in the county during the COVID response. It's the kind of correct person that we need to pull us through as we go through the new city manager selection process. So Dave, we really appreciate you being here and being our interim. And we know that you're not just a caretaker, that you're going to drive initiatives as well. And we're appreciative of that, and appreciative of your experience that you're bringing to the city of Sonoma. And, and talking to staff and stuff, everybody seemed to really enjoy working with you. And I'm enjoying working with you as well. And so just appreciate you being here, and welcome. If you have any words to say as well, I'm happy to hear.
Just that I'm happy to be here, and thanks for the confidence. So look forward to working with you all in the community in these next coming months.
Wonderful. Sounds good. On item 3.2, presentation by Brian O. from Permanent Resource Department, PRMD, regarding the county's progress in developing a specific plan for the Sonoma Developmental Center.
Thank you, Mayor Harvey and honorable council members. My name is Brian O. I am here. Thank you so much for the time this evening. We're about a third of the way through our development of a specific plan for the Sonoma Development Center. And in some early conversations, I started with the county in October of last year. So working with Kathy before the end of the calendar year, she thought this was a good opportunity for me to come and present, provide this group with an update, and continue to stay engaged. We have a lot of really critical milestones upcoming this year. So we hope to continue our engagement with this community. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so this was back in December of 2019. It really, I think what predated this was a lot of community-led organization and advocacy about what to do with the site. Back in December 2019, the state and the county of Sonoma entered a 3-year agreement to not just identify a specific plan, so engage on a planning effort for the campus, but also for the state to come up with a disposition plan, which would culminate at the end of 2023. And sort of what I wanted to kind of highlight a little bit here of what that legislation had identified. Clearly, just with this is not just a County of Sonoma priority, but across the state, looking for opportunities to increase our various housing stock throughout the state, and particularly for this site, just with the history with the Sonoma Development Center and the people that were cared for, people with developmental disabilities. This was one of the key elements that was identified in that legislation. I think also balancing the need for housing was also the need to preserve the land. There's a lot of really great open space on the property, much of it being open space. Everything that is open space will maintain and continue to be open space through any of these discussions. And you see there, again, 3-year project timeline. There was a $3.5 million grant that was provided from the state for us to engage on this. We were able to pull in a really great consultant, Datan Bhatia, who has a lot of really great experience locally and regionally that have been instrumental so far in this first year. So a little bit about the site. Sdc Campus, many of you are familiar with this. It's roughly 6 miles north of the city of Sonoma. it is a place of recreation. There's a bit of activity there at the moment, but largely it's a facility that was closed back in 2018. The entire parcel, 945 acres, roughly 180 acres of that parcel is part of the actual campus footprint. And that's where our focus is on this specific planning effort. And as I mentioned, the remainder of that would remain open space. So I want to talk just a little bit about what we've been doing since then. We brought on our consultant January of 2020. Lots have happened. We had to get really creative, as many of us have had to do, particularly in the planning and community engagement field. But there was a lot of desktop analysis that we were able to do. Again, sort of reiterating strong demand and a need for affordable housing, all types of housing, regional demand for potential visiting serving use, such as a hotel and event space, potential demand for commercial and industrial use. But also, this is one of the few sites in the region that could be realistic for an institutional use. So these are all just, again, it's a market study. These are things that we think the market would be conducive for any sort of planning effort, long-range planning effort to be focused on. Another thing that we were able to do is to take inventory of what's out there. Clearly there's a lot of beautiful buildings. So wherever possible in this planning effort is our need to retain and maintain the community character of the history on the site. That said, there's a lot of sites on the campus that there's a lot of infrastructure needs that will have to be addressed. And currently, we, over the next year, look to have those conversations with a lot of experts. One being already in talks with the engineering department with the city of Sonoma, just to ensure that we're in close coordination, just because water is such a critical regional need that goes across county borders. And then also there's a lot of things that we have to be mindful of. You see in the sort of bright red, this is a fire hazard location. It's something we're mindful of. It's something that's going to be part of the primary discussion of what the future campus and use of this site will be, and as well as natural resources. So are we able to ensure that we're connecting, protecting, and managing the natural areas and the various wildlife corridors that run throughout the campus and the site? And then also, as I mentioned, balancing the water needs with some of these other competing interests and priorities that have been identified for the site. And then, of course, recreation. I'm going to walk the group through a little bit of the engagement that we have been able to do this past year. And that was one thing that came out, pretty clearly was this was a, opportunity for us to maintain some of the really great recreation that takes place on the campus. And then another thing also, financial feasibility. That's something that we're going to have to keep in mind. And I'll talk a little bit later in this presentation just about how we're framing and some of the key elements of what will go into ultimately a preferred alternative for the site. But this is something to be mindful of. There's a lot of infrastructure costs. We have state counterparts on site, essentially maintaining what's out there. And, that's something that will have to be addressed with any long-range planning effort on the site, as well as any sort of mitigation of hazardous materials. And again, water infrastructure is going to be key. That's come through many of the conversations with the local water agencies, and again, a key theme that we're going to want to be addressing throughout this process. So community outreach, it had its starts and stops through this year. The Sonoma Valley is as the group can relate to, went through a lot of trauma, not just this past year, but in recent years, contending with natural disasters, particularly wildfires. One thing that our group, the planning department, was really able to do is pivot pretty well during shelter in place. I'm going to walk just briefly through some of the ways that we've been able to engage, some of the more traditional ways, and just our ability to engage with the community through this forum using Zoom. So we had a community kickoff earlier in 2020, started to take some initial surveys with community members, also following that up with some more focused informational interviews, small group interviews. And then our director, Dennis Wick, assembled an advisory team. So this is a group that meets regularly, and they have critical input into the development of this plan. And then back in November 14th of 2020, it was a rescheduled, big community workshop that was scheduled and had to be rescheduled due to the fire. But we were able to get that off the ground in November, had some really great dialogue, and I'm just going to walk through a few of the things that the community had identified through these touch points. So sustainability and resiliency, critical factors, open space stays preserved. There's a mix of uses, including housing, as well as jobs, cultural resources, institutional resources, walkability, and how do we best honor the site's history and the legacy of care, and also concerns about scale and of potential development, and to maintain some of the community character within the Sonoma Valley was really important. Over 250 community members participated that Saturday morning. Really great turnout, bilingual sort of effort there. We had English and Spanish speaking facilitators, and we look to continue this outreach and engagement over the next couple years. And then I also mentioned some stakeholder interviews, and these were really critical. Once we started to hear some of the general feedback, some of the advocacy that had predated our effort that started in 2019, we really wanted to start drilling down and speaking with some of the local groups, Sonoma, within the Sonoma Valley and also at the state level, just to get a good understanding of where we should be taking the direction of this plan. So some of the takeaways there, again, water is a key issue, wastewater sort of going hand in hand, transportation as well. So how do we ensure that, how we plan for this, mirrors the state and regional goals around climate and transportation and vehicle miles traveled, and mobility. I mean, these are all critical things that we're taking into account. And then also around housing. I mean, that was just a theme that's been from day one, and it's something that we'll continue to discuss and find the right fit for this site. So I want to mention just really quickly, in order for us to have even gotten to this point of starting to discuss potential alternatives, we're still in that process. But really, what's going to be critical, we have an upcoming Board of Supervisors meeting on Tuesday, where we'll be providing an update similar to this. And it's been a lot of work to lead up to this development of a vision and guiding principles, but I think, a little bit of hard work now is going to pay off down the line where we're able to really get some consensus building within the community so that we're able to produce, a preferred alternative, something that's viable for the site. And I will I'm going to just go over the vision here and skip over to the guiding principles because I think that's a little bit more readable here. So this is what we came up with. Promote a vibrant mixed-use community. We need to emphasize a cohesive sense of place and walkability. How do we integrate development with open space conservation? This need to balance redevelopment of the site with the existing land uses. And how are we using the site to promote sustainability and resiliency? We need to support housing development and provide a variety of housing types. And again, we need to balance that development with historic resource conservation with some of the parcels on the property. Also, how do we promote a multimodal mobile future? That's something that we want to be definitely mindful of. And then on top of that, are we ensuring long-term fiscal sustainability? Ultimately, the state will be the lead agency that will dispose of the property through an RFP process. And for any success to happen at this site, for any redevelopment to happen, it's got to make financial sense. So that's something we want to keep in mind. Also to embrace diversity. I think it's a changing county, it's a changing Bay Area, and how are we making sure that the vast sort of the various members of not just the Sonoma Valley but the Bay Area are represented in any long-range planning effort that the County of Sonoma is leading on. And I am going to end here with just a brief schedule overview. Again, we kicked off earlier at the start of 2020. We're about a third of the way there based on the 3-year contract and legislation with the state. But this shows some of our milestones that we are working towards. I mentioned the board meeting next week. We'll take a lot of that feedback and discussion that happens on Tuesday, start to meet with the advisory team. We've established a technical advisory committee that's made up of local experts in engineering and public works and infrastructure planning, water agency, so that ultimately we look to produce a set of alternatives over the next few months, and then to decide on a preferred alternative sometime in the summer. And really this is time. I mean, I talked to our comprehensive planning team about, planning out the work plan, and, in many ways we have to plan around wildfire season. It's something that we're mindful of. It's something that we have to, be more resilient about. So a lot of our planning and engagement is sort of built around the seasons. But that gives us time. Once we get the needed feedback, we can start to work on the desktop content development, working on the review draft. Ultimately we will have a draft plan, and where the council thinks is appropriate, I'm happy to return and to provide additional updates as the project develops. Ultimately, we are targeting for early 2022 for the adoption by the Board of Supervisors for this specific plan and the final EIR for the project. And I will stop there and happy to take any questions.
Do we have questions from council? I can't see anybody, so Rebecca. Questions from council members? No?
I have a quick question. It's Amy.
Go ahead, Amy.
I guess there's been sort of like talk of possible environmental cleanup that has to be done. And has there been any kind of evaluation of the discharge of materials into the water there, or is that yet to be discovered?
Great question, council member. I should have mentioned, one of the upcoming milestones, there is an assessment as part of our consultant contract. So we do have a sub on staff, but currently, we haven't gotten to that point yet, but that is something we will be addressing.
Oh, great. So whenever that comes out, how will the public be made aware of whatever the findings are?
Yeah, so the best way to get, every email that I produce for this project, moving forward, I'm going to stay on as a project manager for this, is getting your email on our website, so sdcspecificplan.com. I'm happy to follow up with Rebecca with this slideshow deck with some of the links. But we also look to have, I believe, 4 additional community meetings. Hopefully, we'll be able to do a few in person towards the tail end. But if not, we'll be able to promote that through our various channels. Like I said, 250 plus that had shown up for that first one, but we're always looking for places and people to meet. So if there are suggestions, even a follow-up suggestion, I'm happy to take those and follow up.
Great, thank you.
Great. I was interested when you had site demands. I think you mentioned that that came from like possibilities based on an economic study, right? It wasn't, okay. Because when I saw a hotel in there, I was like, or maybe from the business community in Glen Ellen, but I doubt that there's a lot of residents there that are pitching for a hotel.
Yep, just to be clear, that was definitely a sort of a regional, what does the market show that there's a need for it? That's not to say this is the site for it.
Right. Very cool. Great. Well,
I have a question.
Go ahead, Jack.
Is any in relation to the county general plan? Is there any, because this is a special plan, but I want to see any relationship. Is compliant or totally, because you mentioned about a hotel and you mentioned that more than a housing.
Yep, that's a great question, council member. I will say there's sort of this, the general plan is our foundation. Whenever there are places that we see an opportunity to do what we call a specific plan, it's very focused on an area. So you may also be familiar, we have a spring specific plan for the boys' hot springs currently in development. And they all have, all follow general plan guidelines. So again, apologies if the hotel thing is throwing people off, but that was just more of a, hey, region-wide, what can the area sustain? And that's not to say that there's a priority for hotel over housing. I think, the city is also, in the discussion around the RENA, regional housing needs allocation discussion. I mean, this is something that's top of our mind. But again, that's not to say this site is the cure-all for the housing discussion throughout the region.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Brian,
any other questions or comments?
Brian, could you stop sharing your screen?
Sure.
Great. Well, I appreciate you coming and presenting this. I think it's a matter of critical importance, not just for the city, but for the valley and for the county as well. Really huge piece of land and a lot of potential for the future. I know every time we have a problem, be it homelessness or lack of housing or something, people always bring up, well, why isn't it at SDC? Why don't we do it there? So it's a long process, and I appreciate you bringing that to our attention. Definitely glad to see the open space being preserved and just kind of working with the building's footprints. I think that's critical down there as well. I'm glad to see the focus around housing because this is a very potential site, but as Amy said, a lot of challenges and a lot of environmental concerns just to tear down those buildings. So thank you for bringing this to us, and I'd love to see you come back and just kind of give us an update as far as where things sit in another month or two. So maybe 6 months or something like that.
Mayor Harvey, did you want to take quick comment on this?
Public comment? I'm happy to open up public comment.
Okay, we do have one individual with their hand raised.
Is it Fred?
No, it's Terry Shore.
Go ahead.
Oh, hi, Mayor Harvey, City Council members, staff, Brian. Well, yes, you figured it was either going to be me or Fred, one or the other. I won't take a lot of your time because there will be a lot of time to comment on this. But one, I just want to thank Brian O. from Permit Sonoma for presenting to the City Council, because it is a valley-wide issue and valley-wide concern. And I hope that the City Council members and staff do review and weigh in, because whatever happens at SDC will certainly have an impact on the City of Sonoma. I would love to see the city general plan, the spring specific plan, the SDC plan, and the general plan all kind of looked at together and holistically, because they are all very closely tied together. And do appreciate the level of commitment to open space, but I guess I do have a concern that the documents that have been provided so far for the SDC specific plan, it looks like there's a plan for a new community with housing, commercial, retail, and I'm just kind of concerned that, one, there's already community there, and two, do we want to build a new community in the middle of rural Sonoma Valley? Because it does have some conflict with state, local, and regional city-centered growth policies. And the state is very, very interested in housing, but also in reducing our VMTs and GHGs. So some housing there, you know, probably makes sense, but to build a whole new community with schools and grocery stores and cafes and a hotel, that concerns me quite a bit, and it will all go through environmental review, but I hope we can pull back from that vision to a more low profile vision. And okay, well, that's probably enough for right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Terry. Or thank you, Ms. Shore. Go ahead. Is anybody else for public comment?
Josette Rose-Eicher.
Go ahead. Josette? Not hearing you, Josette, if you're speaking. I can't see you to see if your mic is off.
Her mic shows it's on. She shows a.
All right, Josette, I'm not sure. If you'd like to submit your comments in writing, you're more than welcome to. You can send them to publiccomment@sonomacity.org. We cannot hear you right now, which is surprising because you've commented before. We've been able to hear you. So give it another 30 seconds and we're going to move on.
See.
Josette trying to come in under David Eicher.
Oh, there you go.
Good. Hand up under David Eicher.
All right.
So,
hello.
There we go. We got you.
You can hear me, huh?
Yeah.
Good. I'm going to give my headset to Josette so she can talk to you. Hold on.
Better get this fixed before cannabis comes up. Anyway, I was one of the 250 people that was at the last meeting for SDC. And I just want to add that not one of us residents said that we wanted a hotel or event site there. That was definitely not one of the items that was brought up by any of the residents participating. So I'm going to continue to participate in these SDC meetings and continue to write, but I think that is the last thing we need in the Valley. Okay, thanks so much.
Next we have
Thank you, Mayor Harvey, council members, Tom Conlon here. I just wanted to thank Brian, Mr. O, for the presentation. A number of us have been following SDC's resolution of what's going to happen at SDC for a number of years. And I had a question. We've heard that the PAT, the Planning Advisory Team, is representing the community. But in some of our investigations, we've found that several of the members aren't regularly attending those meetings, even though the PAT was a fairly exclusive selection of many, many applicants who applied for those positions. And Brian mentioned that Tennis Wick had in fact been the decision maker in who got to serve on the PAT. So I was curious if the public would be able to find out who has been attending those meetings from the PAT, and whether those who are not attending might be replaced by members of the public who are more engaged and actively representing the community. The second question I had was to do with the general plan. I appreciate Mr. Ding bringing that up, because our general plan obviously directs any specific plan that might happen out there. And the specific plan calls, the general plan calls for affordable housing in the event the hospital was shut down. So we want to avoid any kind of litigation that might drag this process out and cause complications with the state. So I do hope that the plan is going to pay close attention to remaining compliant with the general plan. And specifically, because we have a great concern around our housing affordability crisis, we'd really like to see housing made available to the public as soon as possible up there. And what I've been hearing lately is that there's really no plan in place at the present to do any kind of adaptive reuse, even just a short-term adaptive reuse of some of those existing buildings, which could be very useful in the interim period. It doesn't have to commit those buildings to a long-term ultimate use. In fact, those buildings could be transitional and the people who lived in them for the transition period could then be moved into final housing that was built at a later date. I bring this up now in particular because the county is under severe need to put some points on the board with respect to the RHNA housing goals. And my understanding is that right now there's no units are being expected to be produced by SDC in the current RHNA period. So thank you for your consideration of my comments.
Thank you, Tom. Brian, do you want to respond to any of the questions that you heard there? There was a question about, being able to know who is attending the meetings of the PAT, and about the existing buildings, and if there's any idea about adaptive reuse, and then the kind of point about whether or not this is in context with the county plan. I think you may have already answered that when Jack asked it. And then just kind of the difference between the VMT idea, the VMT goals of the county and state, and the point about building a community out there versus building some amount of housing out there.
Sure, I can do that, Mayor. Clearly there are a lot of competing, there's a lot of interest and ideas for the site. Sometimes those are competing interests. So I think the job of the planning efforts that we're currently underway is to balance that. Ultimately, I hope I can just mention this one more time. This is going to be a community-driven planning process. There's no sort of prescribed type of use. I would agree that so far the discussion around the potential use of the site, none of that has sort of any connection to any potential for a hotel. So that's more of like a regional need that was identified through this study. And absolutely, whatever ends up becoming the alternative, there's going to be three conceptual alternatives for the site. Ultimately, the EIR process for the specific plan will go in depth and analyze that preferred alternative. And absolutely, it will be in line with the general plan. And anything that is identified through the general plan for the site is definitely going to be part of our planning process. And then the question about reuse, we're in this really unique situation where it's a state property, and we were able to advocate on behalf of the county for the County of Sonoma to engage and for us to lead this specific planning effort. Ultimately, it will, as sort of constructed, the county will never become the lead agency for the disposition of the property. So those are things that we can connect with our state counterparts on any potential use. I know, there are, I just don't know about the current, viability of the site for any sort of habitability without really going a little bit further down this planning effort. But yeah, all great things that we should and will be taking into consideration. And then there's I think there was a couple points about the accessibility of the advisory team. Those are, we have the meeting notes, we have the attendees, I believe, posted on our website. But I can, if you're able to connect with me offline, for anyone that's interested, I'm happy to explore that further.
Brian, can you put your email address in the chat, if you wouldn't mind?
Sure.
And then people can email you with questions about the path. All right, great. Thank you so much for being here and I appreciate the presentation. We're going to go ahead and move on now, unless there's other comments from council.
We still had one more person for public comment on that item.
Oh, we're done with public comment. I'm so sorry. Yeah, one more.
Caitlin.
Hi, good evening. This is Caitlin Cornwall from Sustainable Sonoma. Sustainable Sonoma is a coalition of community leaders from a wide range of sectors across Sonoma Valley. We are finding solutions and taking action on our community's biggest challenges. We've just published a report called Homes for a Sustainable Sonoma Valley, Strategic Recommendations for Our Community, that we will be sharing with you in the next few days. And we'll also be sharing with you a letter that Sustainable Sonoma is crafting. And I just want to tell you before you receive it that it's a consensus statement from all of these different sectors across Sonoma Valley. So it will talk about things that we want to see about the future of Eldridge, including affordable housing, including the integration of various community services with that housing so that the people who do live there have a higher quality of life, so that whatever gets built there is integrated across ages and incomes, and so that people can drive less who are living there. The Coalition of Sustainable Sonoma is also super committed to the protection of the open space, which I think everyone is. Transit is going to be a need for that new location of housing. And then we also are going to express in our letter the feeling of Sustainable Sonoma Council members that the level and breadth of community engagement has been insufficient so far, and that particularly low-income, Latino, youth, and Indigenous voices are not well enough represented, considering the immense contribution that this site could make to those communities and really to the future viability of the Sonoma Valley community. So look for our letter. That site just has enormous potential to bring new and needed things to the Valley. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Cool. Great. Is that anybody else present for public comment? Great. I'm going to close public comment. And again, thank you, Brian, for being here. I appreciate it. Are there other comments from council members, or should we move on from here? Great. Hearing none, I'll go ahead and move on. And again, thank Brian for coming. Moving on to item 4, the consent calendar. All items listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted upon by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of council, staff, or public request items for separate action. At this time, council may decide to change the order of the agenda. Does anybody want to pull an item from consent?
Can I pull 4.4?
Yeah, absolutely. Pull item 4.4. Okay. Anybody else? Great. We'll go ahead and open up public comment on the consent calendar. Give it a second.
Yep.
See nobody rise? All right, see nobody rise, we'll go ahead and bring it back to council. And can we get a motion for the consent calendar excluding item 4.4?
So moved.
Second?
All right, roll call vote, please.
Councilman,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Agramonte,
Aye.
Councilmember Dean,
Aye.
Councilmember Hunley,
Aye.
Mayor Harvey.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Great. And we'll go to item 4.3. Good, City Manager.
Sure. Mayor and council members, this item is a transfer of, it would consent to the assignment of the city attorney's agreement, the current agreement with Jeff Walter's firm, to the new firm that Jeff's firm is merging with. That's Colantuano, Highsmith, Watt, and Watley. The staff report talks about how the expectation is that the same terms and pricing goes with the new agreement. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, Councilmember.
Go ahead, Councilmember Hunley, or Vice Mayor. Go ahead, Councilmember Hunley.
I don't have any questions. I just have a comment when we get back.
Okay. Any questions from council? Hearing none, so I'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. Seeing no one rise, go ahead and bring it back to council. Councilmember Hunley.
Sure, thanks. So I pulled this for two reasons. One, I just wanted to highlight it because I think it's, significant change in our legal representation. Although Michael, is it Colantano? We'll go with Colantano. He worked with us on back with the water issues, and he was a joy to work with. So I think they're a great firm, and I certainly support it. But I also wanted to pull it because to let everyone know that this will actually be my last vote, because I'm going to be signing off early after this and leaving the remaining 3 items to the rest of the council to discuss and deal with. And if I could just take a few seconds to say that I wish success to the council, because the city's success depends on you, and to thank the Sonoma community for entrusting me with this responsibility these last 6 years. Serving on the council has been one of the most rewarding, illuminating, and at times difficult experiences I've ever had, and I will certainly treasure it. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution in the packet.
Second?
Okay. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Agramonte,
Aye.
Councilmember Dean,
Aye.
Mayor Harvey. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Henley.
I'm still here. Aye.
Before I vote, I just want to comment and thank Councilmember Hunley for her service to the city of Sonoma. Appreciate anybody who steps up and volunteers for public service. It's a lot of time away from your family. It's a lot of time away from the things that you love and care about. It's a lot of difficulties, a lot of late nights, and sometimes a lot of tears. And so, just appreciate you stepping up and serving the community. I think you've done it with honor, and I appreciate you choosing to do that. And so I want to honor that. And we would have done more for you, but I heard from David Kiff that you wanted to kind of keep it low key. So understood.
Yeah.
And
Appreciate
that's all good.
that. Thank you all. Thank you to the public comments earlier, but I will watch you on TV now.
And so I'll vote yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Great. Perfect. We don't have item 5, which is public hearing, so we're on to item 6.1, discussion and consideration and possible direction to staff to repair an ordinance that allows a second retail storefront or commercial cannabis business and or another types of businesses in the city. Go ahead, David Storr.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Good evening, David.
Hey, Happy New Year. You may recall at your last city council meeting, the council awarded a conditional certificate to Spark. The second thing you did at that meeting was to direct staff to set up a discussion for your council to determine if it wanted to add a second dispensary, a storefront retail facility in the city. By way of reminder, just do a very short recap of our cannabis process. You may recall that the city council in 2019 early adopted 2 ordinances. The first was to establish the ability for commercial cannabis in the city to exist. And the second one was to modify the zoning ordinance, which would allow it in certain locations with the city. And you may recall the discussions that we had about buffers. Later on in that same year, the city council adopted procedures and an application process for allowing retail, storefront, and non-storefront. And again, by way of reminder, your ordinances that you adopted allowed for 4 types of permits for commercial cannabis. Number 1 was for retail. Number 2 was for a non-storefront retail, testing lab, and for manufacturing. And to remind you about manufacturing, there are many types of manufacturing, 4, I believe, and the council was interested in only allowing for a type N or a type P. The N was for your edible products and topicals, basically infusion. And with a type N manufacturing, you could also do a type P, but you could not do a P and also do N. And so your council deferred discussion on the lab and the manufacturing types, but did direct staff to create a process, an application process for the retail storefront and non-storefront. So again, that's just a quick reminder, and we have the ability now as a council to discuss if it chooses to go with a second dispensary in the city. And that concludes staff's report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Do we have questions of David about this at all?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
My question is, if somebody already paid their deposit and had their application scored and ranked, if we made a second dispensary, would they have to pay that deposit a second time, or would the work that was done on their application carry forward? Or would that be part of something we would have to decide?
I'll let Jeff respond, but I'll give you my first piece. All of the applications that were submitted were in and around the year of around $11,000, if I remember correctly. There are some that are due refunds and some that are not due refunds because obviously they went through the whole process. So
yeah, I
believe it would depend. Certainly Spark, having gone through the entire process, wouldn't get any of that 11,000 back. Some of the others would get pieces. But I would imagine that if you were to select one of the finalists, they would not get a refund on the balance of what they paid.
different question. So if we had a second dispensary and we went through the entire process again, and people were submitting what would be considered first applications because it would be for a new license, if the people who had been previously evaluated, would they have to be reevaluated and pay the fee a second time, or would the evaluation that they went through previously apply to the next time? And is that something that we can decide tonight, or do you have any thoughts about how that would work?
Yeah, I don't have to think about that for a moment. Jeff, do you have any thoughts?
I do. I think it's up to the council to determine that. It seems to be a reasonable approach that if the evaluation process is more or less the same the second go around as it was the first, there probably wouldn't be a need for a second evaluation, even though it's reapplication. And maybe the fee that would be charged would be substantially less. There'd be an estimate of how much time really would be required to to process somebody's already gone through the entire process, particularly if, as I said before, the second go around is more or less the same as the first in terms of the criteria that would be used, et cetera.
Right.
You know, I think the council can make that call.
And then how would that be reflected? Would that be like, what would be the process for like making that clear? It's not a regulation. It's not part of what is it?
I think the way that, let's assume for the purpose of discussion, the council decides it wants to have one additional retail operation available in the city of Sonoma, and you give that direction to the staff. The staff would need to come back with an ordinance to amend the existing ordinance that puts the cap at 1. And that ordinance would be very straightforward. It'd make the cap 2. During that same evening, the staff could bring back a resolution of the council sort of structuring the vetting process this second go around. You may want to give preference to all those folks who went through the first process, or in terms of not having to reapply, that the old applications that they submitted would suffice for the second go around. There maybe be part of the resolution would indicate that staff would determine how much of the previous deposit was consumed, and an estimate of how much an abbreviated processing for those applicants who already went through the process would be required this second time around. There might be in the resolution even a fee estimate. It'll cost.
So it'd be but the process would be an amendment to the ordinance with regard to the number of dispensaries, and then a separate resolution amending the, I don't know what the right words are, but guidelines with regard to the selection process.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I can, perhaps a question to Jeff. The city council, could it not, Jeff, also only select if it chose to select from the 4 finalists? Or in this case, it would be 3 finalists at this point because one of the 4 was Spark.
It could do that too. It could decide that just the applicants who already went through the process and reached a certain level of approval would be those that would be screened again and determined as to whether they should be entitled to be awarded a conditional certificate. You could limit the number of applicants the second time around if you wished.
So, Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question?
Of course you may, Vice Mayor.
Well, so the last time we went through this process, those were really snapshots of these companies. So I would imagine, partnerships could have broken up, financial stability could have changed. So how does that, what happens there? I assume everything's okay, but I'm just saying this is a snapshot.
Well, your comment obviously argues in favor of, at least, even if this council was willing to limit the scope of the applicants to those who have already applied, they would be required to update their application to make sure that it still meets the criteria that the proposal review committee would apply in ranking them. And they would still, I think it's probably a good idea to have them go through that process to some extent to make sure that things have not fallen apart, that they still have a solvency that they showed the first time around. So probably even if you limited to the finalists in the last go around, you'd still want a modicum of review process to be followed.
Okay, thank you. Because I just thought about that, it being a snapshot in time.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just add, you may recall that your council was interested at that time, as I said previously, to only doing 2 of the permits and not all 4. What we learned from that first process last year was that there was very little to non-interest in the non-retail storefront. So I just want to kind of put that out there. And we heard that pretty much from all of the proposers.
Have we heard any inquiries or questions around the other commercial uses?
I'm sorry.
Like, has there been anybody who's pinged the city about manufacturing or anything like that? Okay.
No, I've had none. And another thing that we learned as a staff was that the testing labs are quite the prized asset, basically due to their the type of work they do. We heard that there's a total, I think, 35 throughout the whole state. So it's quite the catch for a community to be rebel on those.
So I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. So
Go
what
right ahead.
attracts that? What attracts that segment? Labs.
There's very little footprint in their business. And it's basically, there's no deliveries or distribution. It's just a product comes in the mail or however it gets delivered to them. They test it, put it on a scale, run it through some diagnostics and get it back out.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Ding, did you have questions?
My question is, the applicant come from the operator or the landlord? Because I know it will spend a lot of the money for the operator and to the monitoring and the based on the where you rent. So do you have any, or asking both operator and the landlord that together apply, or in this way, it will be efficient?
Yeah, the 10 proposers were all applicants. None of them that I know of actually own the property to which they were looking at, although it wasn't until later in the process they disclosed where those locations were. And I believe they've not been purchased.
All right.
You meant that they were all operators.
Correct. I'm sorry, did I miss
Okay.
Yes, you said they were all applicants.
Okay, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, they were all operators, and then later they told us that they had entered into some sort of arrangement with a location, and then they told us where that location was.
Because I think,
Yes.
Mayor, that was what we asked. Is that
Right.
right? Don't look
Yeah,
at the location.
because the location is key. Yeah, you're right.
Oh, yes.
But then we had it so that one location could give multiple kind of options to different people. So whoever the successful person was could have the location because there were so few locations.
Correct.
It's like one location can have 3 people that they said, like, if you get it, I'll lease it to you.
That is correct, yeah.
Does that answer your question, Councilmember Ding?
Not really. Yeah, just the.
Okay. Follow up. Do you need additional information or? So like it's I guess clear cut, my understanding is we never had a joint application between a landlord and an operator. That never happened. We only ever had operators that applied, right? But
Right.
then the operators at the end, they would reveal to us that they had an agreement with a landlord who was going to allow them to go there. And then council would decide based on that location who the final person was.
That is correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Correct.
I've got a question, David. So I think one of the central questions as if we move forward with this process is whether we would dip back into that pool, which was going to be my question, but the city attorney already answered it, of the previous applicants, or would we open it up for new applications to come in? And the question I have for you is, I know that this process took forever and developing all these rules and working with HDL took a very long time. That wouldn't have to be done this time. How long would you say it would take you to vet an additional 10 applicants?
I don't believe that there would be a great savings unless if they were all net new ones, because you still have to do the background checks, you have to do the financial reviews, things of that nature. We would still have the PRC, the Project Review Committee, and go through that process and then get down to a set of finalists. That would probably take around the same 6 to 8 months that it took us to get from the beginning of 2020 to August, I believe it was.
Yeah, and that's my concern with doing all new ones is that it's going to end up putting a lot of our other ideas on the back burner. And there's also the possibility that we approve for 2 and then open up the discussion later. We could say that we're allowed for 2 and then eventually do it. Would there be anything that would prevent us to say we'll allow for 2 dispensaries and then it would open at a later date, or we would begin that process at a later date?
You can do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I just, in the midst of COVID recovery and vaccinations and wanting to start on parks, one of my concerns is opening this process again and it taking a lot of time. But approving one is okay, and then we can open the process up once we finish some of those things. We also have general plan that we need to start working on fairly soon too. Okay, those are kind of my two questions. Does anybody else have any other questions or follow-up questions?
No, not me.
Yep. You're good, Madeline. Jack, anything from you? Amy?
Nope.
All right, great. We'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. And Rebecca, again, I can't see anybody, so you're running this thing.
Yep. First, we have the Latimer.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
All right. So this is Gil Latimer, Grant Court, Sonoma. Good evening to the City Council. I'm here representing former Mayor Ken Brown, his late wife, Jewel Mathiasen, and the over 200 members of the Sonoma Valley Cannabis Group. Most of you know who we are and that we spent the last 3.5 years lobbying the city for safe local access to cannabis. Now that we've realized that mission, we also thank the City Council for leaning forward on this issue. You've helped define Sonoma as a city of progressive values and definitely enhanced your reputation here in the county. Recently, some council members expressed interest in permitting one additional walk-in dispensary. We agree and believe there are a number of reasons why this would be in the best interest of medical patients, adult consumers, and the city. First, a second dispensary will provide more jobs, greater tax revenue, and additional community benefits. And considering that tourism is Sonoma's lifeblood, cannabis tourists will also contribute to our city's financial health. Second, permitting only one walk-in dispensary limits residents' ability to take advantage of a fair, more competitive environment. Our patient community especially needs access to the widest choice of products possible to ensure that they get what they need. Competition is a healthy part of any industry. A competitive market results in better prices, more product choices, and innovative services. And that's what the free market is all about, isn't it? So, bottom line, permitting one additional dispensary provides us an opportunity to improve access to essential services, grant more consumer choice, and affect positive economic impact on the local economy. In this scenario, everybody wins, the consumers and the city. So, should you decide to permit one additional outlet, our only other ask is that the City Council look to find ways to adapt the earlier process in order to approve a retail business in a more timely fashion. And I'm really happy to hear you guys talking about that right now. That's great. Thank you very much. And so in the meantime, we look forward to the City Council's discussion of this issue and look forward to a positive outcome. Thanks very much and have a great night.
Next, we have Josette Brose-Eicher.
Is it working this time?
We can hear you.
Good.
It is.
The IT guy fixed it. I wrote a long email, so this is going to be pretty short. Josette Brose-Eicher, 1110 Loma Court. In thinking about amending the ordinance to allow a second dispensary, please think about the entire population of Sonoma Valley. It is easy to see that a second dispensary would be viable and easily supported by the community. We already know that there are 2 well-vetted locations, and you have many interested and qualified operators already have gone through the process as you discussed before. And I think I'm really happy to hear that because it would speed things along this time. This will allow the process to move much faster than the first time around. And I see this as a win-win for those of us who live in the Valley and the city of Sonoma. The dispensaries will be viable in contributing businesses even in hard times, like we're going through right now. We're lucky that Measure Y did not pass, but I think the fact that it was presented shows there is a strong desire for another dispensary and a bit of healthy competition. With the present ordinance permitting 2 dispensaries, The city will be assured that only well-run and socially responsible businesses are providing cannabis products are the ones operating. I hope you agree and we can move forward, and thanks so much.
We have Van Solkov.
Hi, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I am Van Solkov, 144 West Spain Street in Sonoma. And I'm the founder of Happy Travelers Tours. And I'm going to speak as the harbinger of the tourism storm, which will ultimately get to Sonoma, and how cannabis plays a part in that. So I wrote a lengthy email, which has been recorded, to the city. But basically, Happy Travelers, this is our 4th year of operation, and cannabis tourism is the trending thing. It is a global destination pull. People from all over the world are interested in learning all about getting up close and personal with cannabis. And the Sonoma Valley, despite its desire to not think about this, is the heart of California cannabis. It's the heart of wine and weed country. It really is. And this pulls people here. In 2020, it was a disaster for anybody in the tourist business. And we didn't, we're no different than anybody else. But we did run some tours. We put heads in beds in Sonoma, in local motels and hotels. And those folks that came for our tours. That was it. They came into Sonoma. They took a Happy Travelers experience. They left Sonoma. That's a small percentage of the tourist industry today, but it's going to grow. And the pent-up demand is huge, as we know. When we finally can travel again in 2021, it's going to be everywhere. So as a business, one that wants to keep the tourist dollars here in Sonoma proper, I've been here for 10 years, born and raised in Sonoma County, but lived in Sonoma now 10 years. And I don't want to take my tourists who spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars at dispensaries in Santa Rosa whenever we take them off on our dispensary experience. I don't want to take them out of the valley. It's a long haul. It's just not the experience they really want. A second dispensary within the city limits allows me to modify my itineraries, keep my tourists and my guest dollars here in Sonoma, creating more revenue for the city, a better experience for the guests and for the tourists, and really helping to let Sonoma shape what the cannabis tourism industry is going to be like as it comes, stronger and stronger. That's my comment. I'm also a medical consumer. I broke my spine 28 years ago. I live in a world of pain. I know I'm done. As a shopper, you need more than one dispensary, because one dispensary cannot cover all the SKUs that you need to do what you do. That's it. I'm done. Thank you.
Next, we have David Eicher.
Hello, yeah, Dave Eicher here. I think first of all, from the fact that the measure Y failed, I don't think that means that people in Sonoma did not want an additional dispensary. They wanted the dispensaries to be regulated properly by the city council with input, and not just as unregulated as can be as the state allows. So I think you can't take the measure failing as an indication of how many dispensaries the city wants necessarily. And second, one of the arguments in terms of people were saying about dispensaries in the first place was the concern about traffic. Well, if you have 2 dispensaries, that means there's going to be less traffic to each one is going to be spread out amongst the 2 dispensaries. Just a thought. Thank you very much.
No one else has their hand raised at this time, Mayor Harvey.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate you monitoring that. Okay, great. Do we have comments from council? Go ahead, David.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to kind of, while we were taking public comment, I just looked back into the files just to give your council an update on those 5 finalists to refresh. I had to sit and think. You may recall that we had Spark, Justice Grown, Lighthouse, Coastal, and Mercy Wellness. And Mercy Wellness withdrew. And so we had 4 finalists, and your council selected 2 of those finalists to go to the last step in the process to select or to award a conditional certificate, and that was Spark and Justice Grown.
Yep. Thank you, David. I appreciate that. Do we have comments from council members?
I'll go. It's Amy.
Go, Amy.
I support having 2 dispensaries. I spoke about this at a previous meeting, so I don't want to go on and on about it, but obviously my thinking is in evolution, and I think that the best thing for the consumer would be to have 2 dispensaries. I think that will create some amount of price competition, and that certainly I've heard from a few people saying they would prefer if one would be in the valley. That would be cool too, but it doesn't look like the Board of Supervisors is prepared to let that happen. So in terms of a selection process, I think whoever was vetted before should keep their score, however that could be done. And then I would be open to allowing new people to apply or not, depending on the will of the council. But I wouldn't want everyone to start from scratch. I would imagine that the people who wanted to apply to have a dispensary did so during the first round. I don't imagine that there's a bunch of other companies that didn't do it at that time. So perhaps we already have the universe known, but I'm open to hearing other people's thoughts. And I think Madeline's comment about some sort of verification that no changes to the application or that whatever information was submitted is still current is also a really good idea. So those are my thoughts.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll just comment. I support this as well and supported this at the outset of the ordinance. Thought that we should have 2 to begin with, and still support it today. In fact, in some ways, when you look at our ordinance, we have 2 retail dispensaries already approved here. It's just that one's not allowed to be storefront; it's just delivery only, right? So we were already going to go down the path of having 2 dispensaries in town, and this is just allowing people to walk into the building. That's really the change. For me, I think that it's a good thing for price competition. I don't think that it means that you can't have one in the valley. And there's been a number of times where dispensaries have been proposed or talked about in the valley, and there's been some amount of rejection for that. So, I'd love to see one in Boise Hot Springs if that community wants it, or in El Verano or wherever else people want one. But I think 2 in Sonoma is appropriate and not a problem. We support, 7 or 8. We got 5 or 6 gas stations. We've got 3+ supermarkets. We've got multiple different spots to buy alcohol and wine. I don't think it's a problem to have 2 dispensaries. The one concern I really have is disrupting the kind of goals that we've set for this year. I really would like to work on parks. I think that's really important. I really would like to focus on COVID recovery. And so if we were going to go down this road, I'd be fine with tabling discussion for a little bit and bringing it back and having a conversation about it, approving a second dispensary tonight and then having a conversation about this further down the road as far as actually who is it going to be. I don't think that's an urgent matter, but open to council's thoughts around that. I really just don't want to take up 6 months of staff time with this. That's my big concern, because there's other priorities at hand. But approving this, I'll be voting yes tonight, absolutely. Councilmember Ding, Councilmember Agramonte?
Yep. Yes. Yeah, we already spent a lot of the time for this. Yeah, we need to move forward. We can do something else. And also Measure Y this time didn't pass, but it's got a significant vote right. So it tells us a lot of the things. So it's a new of course, and everything has something good or something bad. But what we can do as city council, and we find the right direction, we work together and change it from the good to better, from the bad to the good. That is our job.
Okay. Vice Mayor Agramonte?
Well, I was very proud to be able to move this forward when we tied the last time. I went beyond my, I went beyond, my comfort zone. So I cannot be part of voting yes. I've spoken to everybody, the same people you have, wonderful people. I don't agree with the issue of monopoly. And I'll just give you my simplistic reason why. Because if I found that this one dispensary was charging exorbitant prices compared to delivery, other cities, I would consider that. But it's just static. Now it's going to be a price. If it's comparable with every one of the other businesses throughout the county or wherever, then I'm comfortable with it. But if it became, price gouging, I would consider it. But at this point, I don't think I can support it.
Okay. Well, do we have a motion on this? Or?
Make a motion to approve amending our ordinance to add a second dispensary.
I'll second.
I second.
Okay. Jack second. Perfect. We have a roll call vote?
Yes. Councilmember Harrington?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Agramonte?
No.
Councilmember?
Aye.
Mayor Harvey?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 3101.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So when the ordinance comes back for approval to do the second one, is that when we will discuss kind of all the mechanics of it?
I think that would be the better time to do that. Let's have the ordinance in place, have the council take action on it. And that same evening, you can give us direction whether you want us to move forward and solicit additional proposals at that time, or following Mayor Harvey's lead, defer that process for several months. I think that'd be the time to have that discussion.
Okay, so maybe that can be part of the staff report at that time, what the options are.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding the mayor's annual assignments for council members to various boards and committees. This is usually a process where I can just hand kind of the list over to Rebecca and show everybody. I've gotten a couple requests from people. I kind of know where you want to sit and things like that. So, and there's a couple of these that we were kind of talking about getting rid of. I think the city's facility committee, I don't know if it's ever met. I don't think I ever met with them.
I think years ago, Mr. Mayor, they used to meet, but I just think with the change of a city manager, it's just it's not good or bad. It just disappeared with Carol Giovanotto.
Yeah, and I think it's also the Health Action Committee. Has that met?
Actually, they just sent me an email that I don't know if they're reestablishing the Health Council, but they asked who our representative was because they're going to have the first meeting on February 5th.
Is that the one in Santa Rosa? Because there's the health something here.
The
Sonoma Valley
Health
is no longer.
The what I just got from Sonoma County was the Sonoma County. Let me look at the email. I've got it right here. I received it from Sonoma County Department of Health Services. It is for the 2021 Health Action Council.
Okay. All right. Okay, so here's.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. I went to a few meetings. If someone else would like to take a look at them, I thought it was a waste of my time. Sorry, it's just full of agencies. It's taken over by Sustainable Sonoma, and that's just how it is right now. But,
Okay.
you know, obviously greater minds are here and you can figure that one out for yourself.
Great. Okay. So for the City Finance Committee, I wanted to put Jack as our representative and Madeline Agramonte as the alternate.
Ooh, okay.
Makes sense.
Jack asked
Thank
for it.
you.
I'm going to give it to him.
Oh my
He's
God,
our
he seems like
tax man.
the
He's got it down. He knows what's going
seems
on.
like
Thank
seems like
you.
the most qualified. Yeah.
You got to put the numbers man on the Finance Committee. So.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't have to know how to count.
Yeah, we will work together with Madeline.
Yeah.
Perfect. Sonoma Disaster County Council, the Housing Corporation, and Fire Rescue are all mayor, vice mayor. So that's me and Madeline. Tourism Improvement District Board is typically the mayor and city manager. We'll keep it the same. Advisory, the Library Committee, we'll keep it the same. Groundwater Sustainability, I'll take Rachel Hundley off since she's resigning and put Jack Ding on as the city representative.
What number are you on? I'm sorry, Mr.
Sorry,
Mayor.
8. I apologize. I went through quick
Yeah.
because 3, 4, and 5 are all they're all me and you. They'll have to be me and you. They're mayor, vice mayor typically.
So
It's not possible for someone to share the screen so we could look at the list. Rebecca,
Can
could you
somebody do
share
that?
the screen?
I do. I don't have Logan's appointments.
Even
I
if we
can
could
tell
just,
them as we go through.
oh, but I mean, even if we can just see the list as he goes through. So
Let me locate it. One moment.
Oh, I'm sorry, Logan, you just said,
Rebecca, I could share if it's easier.
oh,
If you have Dave, that would be great.
Okay.
Have it right there.
Yeah.
so did you just say GSA, Jack and
Jack
Okay.
and myself.
you?
All right.
And you?
Yeah. I'm the
Okay.
alternate right now, so I'll just stay as the alternate and we'll put Jack in as the lead.
Because you
Okay.
know, that's an unbelievable committee, but I don't know what happened to it. And it's so important.
Yeah. Well, and Jack wants it, and I do a lot of work on SCTA, and it's hard for me to flip both of them, and so I think Jack will do a great job there. And he asked for it, so I think it's important that one of us be on all of us be on one of the big committees. I've taken SCTA. You're doing a fantastic job on Zero Waste Sonoma. So we'll get to number 9, Sonoma Clean Power Authority. I'm gonna keep Amy on as our city rep, and I'll put myself in as the alternate.
Oh, good.
great.
So we need a rep for the Health Action Council.
That's the one I think somebody needs to research for first.
But it was city manager as needed. So can it be Dave?
Yeah, let's just keep the city manager there.
Oh, good.
Give Dave something to do for both 10 and 11. And, update, I'm happy to be an alternate there. I've been working on the COVID-19 stuff, on the vaccinations and the COVID-19 Latino task force as well. So I'm happy to be updated as needed, but, I think city manager should be the lead.
So I'm sorry to interrupt, but 11, Kelly Mather ran that. They have chairs that rotate, but you might call whoever could double check this with the executive assistant there, and I can get you the name, but I think it's discontinued.
Okay. All right. Sonoma County mayors and council members that's already set. So the one with legislative committee, I was considering putting myself as the city representative unless somebody else has a strong passion to be there.
No, not me.
I don't.
Okay, I'll go ahead and take that lead role, and then we'll just keep Amy as the alternate.
Okay.
Congratulations, Amy.
Oh, thank you. I'm just thinking, I'm happy with all the assignments you want to do, but are you thinking that when we get a different council member, you'll change these again at that time? Just considering the amount of work you're taking on now seems like a lot, but obviously, thank you.
Yeah, no, it is a lot. The big one is SCTA that I'm on. The other two big ones I think really are clean power Zero Waste Sonoma and groundwater sustainability.
Yeah.
And that's shared equally, right? Jack's on groundwater, Madeline Zero Waste Sonoma, you're on Sonoma Clean Power, and all of us are doing or will do a great job on those agencies. So I think that's perfect.
Okay.
You know, with the Ledge Committee, I'm happy to take it just as the mayor. And then if there's a new person and they're really interested, yeah, we can switch. That's fine. I'd like to see what it is. I haven't really gotten involved in it before. So, Citizens Advisory Commission. Jack, do you want to stay on there?
I would like to take a break because I have been serving over there 8 years. Very important, very interesting, you know, the body, because although this is not decision-making body, however, big influence. You can, a lot of the project, just like today we just listen to the presentation, Sonoma Development Center. That one over there is a big talk. I want to suggest the mayor and the, either the vice mayor, at least will be there. Very important.
Yeah, I don't want to be on that board. I appreciate that board and everything that they do.
And Amy
I have been on the board. Jack knows.
Amy was there before.
I think you were the chair when I was on there, right, Jack?
Yes. Yeah, that time. That is.
I agree. It's an important board. I just have a lot that's going on and I can't.
You could hold that for the new person.
Okay, so we'll leave that.
That is right. Yeah, that is right.
Perfect. Okay, great. Yeah, that's perfect.
Thank
so we'll leave
you.
that open to the new person, and I can attend the next one since I'm the alternate, and then we'll fill them in. Perfect. Okay, great.
Do you want to remain as the alternate, Mayor?
Yeah, I'll remain as the alternate, and then we'll put the new person in there. I think David's attendance waned pretty hard, and nobody let me know. I mean, you don't even vote if you're a council representative there. So it's kind of like
observing or something.
Yeah,
you're just you're kind of liaisoning.
Yeah, it's a little weird. So sometimes I'll jump on and I'll listen in, and they have very interesting discussions. It's pretty cool. I was there for the Amazon one and the one they did on Donham, but yeah, we'll leave that for the new person. I'll say the alternate now, and I'll attend the next meeting that they have. Is the Vitality Partnership moving very often? Is that meeting very often?
Logan, your sound just changed.
Can you hear me?
It's like a little
barely.
Barely? Huh.
Yeah.
My phone hasn't moved. Can you hear me now? I'm gonna get closer.
It's like a little underwater kind of.
It almost sounds like you went from speaker to not speaker, which is weird since you're on Zoom.
Hello? Hello? Is that better?
We can hear you. It's just a little bit different.
I promise I'm gonna get this fixed by the next meeting. It's just
I say we do a GoFundMe for the mayor.
I want to do a GoFundMe for my new computer. I don't know if Jeff would make that legal, but I'm down for it for sure. Yeah, I'm interested in this Vitality Partnership. I don't know if it meets though. I know Jack, you were interested in this as well.
What? I don't get what happened with 17.
Oh, 17?
Yeah.
That's the one we have to be on as well, mayor and vice mayor.
Well, I did serve 12 years on a sanitation district board.
There you go.
There you go.
Cleaning the streets, Madeline.
Yep, back in the dredges.
So, Jack, you wanted this one. I'll give it to you. That's fine.
Which one, 17 or?
The 18, Economic Vitality Partnership.
All right. Okay. I got it. Yes. No problem.
I'll make myself the alternate. That's fine.
Oh, we have two 18s.
Oh, we do?
Well, the second 18.
No, they're the same.
That
it's
is
just
water.
the 18 is the purpose. Oh no, shoot.
Nope. It's just misnumbered. It's all right.
Or Amy, why don't you say as the alternate, we'll make Jack the new one for 18?
That's fine.
For 19. I want to leave that for the new person, honestly.
I don't know. I think 19 maybe. I think 19 goes with being on the other water thing.
Groundwater sustainability. Yeah, so we should give it to Jack.
Otherwise known as groundwater sustainability.
All right.
I
I
don't
take
know.
that 2 water is fine. Okay. No
2
problem.
waters is fine.
Yeah.
can handle being on the economic vitality?
That is.
That's the first 18.
Oh, first the 18.
Yeah, the next
You
one is
sent me an
really
email
long.
requesting that one.
Dave, can you go up and highlight it?
I'll take first 18 if you can do the two water ones.
Do you want that one, Jack?
Yes. Yeah, the 18, that's fine. And also 2 water is fine, and no more.
Hey, Jack, you're the new guy.
Tax season's coming, Jack. You know, you got to be careful.
Jack's getting both 18s.
Yeah, both 18 is fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And it's tough because we're short a council member to put on these things. And so we need to redo this when we have the new council member, because there's a lot of these that, you know, there's the ABAG meeting.
I went to the ABAG meeting when they were working on that CASA compromise, and I haven't been after that, and I would prefer for someone else to go. And I thought maybe somebody else knows, but I thought that ABAG was being disbanded, and so it was like becoming basically
Yes,
irrelevant.
right, Amy. Something's up with
Yeah,
that.
I thought they were getting rolled up in.
Well, I'll do ABAG since it's one meeting.
So, Mr. Mayor, I ask that I stay on 37. They haven't met in a long time. Of course, they meet through Zoom. And I also would like to be on 22. I used to serve as that on that. And it really is important because it operates with 37 because of all the, you know, the grasses and the sustainability underneath what they're planning, possibly a causeway or a bridge. So oh, thank you. Bloodbath.
Okay.
Cool. All right.
Who will be the alternate on those two? So the public works director and then.
On 22, and then I can be the alternate on 21. But I know Madeline's going to go to those meetings because she doesn't miss meetings. So.
Okay.
Yeah, 21 and 22, I'd like to be the primary.
Okay. And I'll be the alternate on 21.
Thank you.
Cool. Are we clear?
There is a group that from Sonoma goes to the 37 meeting.
Yeah, that is important.
I'll make these changes, Mayor Harvey, and I will shoot them out to everyone just to make sure that I captured everything, if you're okay with that.
That's perfect. That's what should happen.
Okay. Yep. So we'll do that to make sure that they're all correct.
Do we want to wait to vote on this for the next meeting and just put it on consent?
You don't typically vote on them.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
It's really the mayor's choice, is that right?
Correct. It is. It's the mayor's appointment.
Thank you, Mayor Harvey, for my new appointments and my old ones.
It's the mayor's appointment ratified by the council. Might I suggest that you open it up to public hearing and then take a vote on it afterwards?
Okay. I'll go ahead and open it up for public comment.
You do have Tom Conlon that wants to speak on this?
Do we? Okay. Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank all the council members for stepping up to work on all of these committees. There's a lot of work going on throughout the county, and it's a good way to stay engaged with what's going on outside of our little valley. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Oh, that was nice. Thank you. Oh, you're welcome.
Anybody else want to heap praise on us, or we close with public comment?
No, but I'm for a GoFundMe for you. Mr. Mayor. Don't they have an old one sitting around?
Okay, I make a motion to ratify the mayor's appointments on these committees.
I second.
Roll call vote.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Agramonte,
Aye.
Councilmember Dean,
Aye.
Mayor Harvey.
Yes. And
Thank you. The motion is 401.
Thank you. And we're going to take a short break here because I've been informed that one of us needs a little break. So we're going to take a break.
All right.
We'll be back in 5 minutes.
I'll be back tomorrow at 9.
submit this as the youngest member of council. I haven't like gotten my situation done here because I've never done Zoom on my iPad.
Oh, your
And,
phone
like,
works now.
I don't have all my passwords organized here, so it's like I was bringing in, and then we can download Zoom. So I was in like crisis mode before this call started. I was like, how am I going to join this meeting? My computer's dead. My iPad doesn't have Zoom. I really didn't want to be on my phone. But it works out. I think the camera on my phone's better than the one on my computer.
Rebecca, maybe you'll have to show me how to.
Sorry, what?
Rebecca, you.
Oh, meeting is restarted. All right. Is everybody else here? Is David, Kiff here, and everybody? Yeah.
Yep.
That's here. Good. All right. Moving on to item 6.3, discussion, consideration, and possible action to fill a possible vacancy on the Sonoma City Council, either by appointment or by calling a special election. Dave Kiff.
Yeah, so I don't know if you'd like a brief, I have a brief PowerPoint on it. It's 90 seconds just for the public's edification.
Give us your quick 90.
All right. Share screen.
I like that 90-second PowerPoint. Nice.
I know. I've never heard that in a sentence before.
Oh, can you see the screen right now?
Yes.
I can.
Filling a
It's
council
a little
vacancy.
bit. It's a little bit cut off.
A little bit cut off. Okay, maybe by the visual there. Okay, so you have to decide within 60 days of when the vacancy occurs. We don't actually have a date yet. We need to have a date that will be helpful. Within 60 days, you have to decide whether to fill it via appointment or via special election. If it's a special election, you fill it within 114 days of the election has to be held within 114 days of the day you call it. Anybody who's a qualified registered voter in the city limits can run, and that person's elected to serve out the remainder of, in this case, Councilmember Hunley's term. It's not a runoff type thing. It's just the person securing the most votes wins. And the cost is about $23 to $38.5. We don't have this in the budget right now. You chose to fill it by appointment. You have to make that appointment within 60 days of the vacancy. You can appoint anyone who's a qualified registered voter in the city limits as of the date of the appointment.
Yep.
So in other words, the date that person is actually appointed, you could appoint a 17-year-old who's going to be 18 on February 28th. Now, the person elected is appointed to serve out the remainder of the term. The question's for you. Which do you want to do? If it's a special, we'd come back to you with a resolution setting the date and a budget amendment to cover the cost. If it's an appointment, you'll want to kind of give us some guidance as to the process. You can seek applicants, you can provide a questionnaire, you can have an interview schedule. You could also do none of those things. You can just pick someone. So that's it. I'll stop sharing.
Great. Do you have questions for Dave?
Well, excuse me, Dave, we're sort of in a sticky wicket right now because we don't really know what date. It was almost like I thought maybe it was today, but it's not. So I thought I heard 23rd once. So I'm not being facetious. I'm just being, I don't know.
Yeah, we haven't received an official letter of resignation from Councilmember Hunley. She's resigned on Facebook and then sort of resigned tonight, but it's still not official. So we need that. And I heard the 31st, but I don't know. So we'll see.
Is the process for her to resign is that she has to resign to the mayor or the clerk, or how does it work?
Jeff might be able to help too. It just needs to be something in writing to either to me that I'd pass along to the mayor or to the mayor himself. Could be an email or a letter, just something saying this is the date I'm stepping down. We don't have that yet.
So should that be you, Dave, to find out?
I did talk with Councilmember Hunley, and her expectation was the 31st, as Mayor Harvey notes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so can we even vote on this until after before she resigns? Or do we have to wait till after she resigns to vote on this?
You can certainly vote on a process and direct staff to come back after she's resigned to implement the process. You can't pick somebody tonight.
Okay. Great. Okay. Any other questions from council? Seeing no one else with questions, I'll go ahead and open this up for public comment.
We do have Fred Olubach.
Okay.
I'd just like to say that I would support a process where you pick somebody, and it sounds like maybe getting some applications or interest from people would be good, and then you choose from them, and then you save $23,000 to $38,000 that you could put in the affordable housing fund. That's my comment.
Wow, that's great.
Anybody else? Nope.
Mr. Mayor, is there any idea of how much it would cost for an election?
Hold on, let's finish public comment.
All right, sorry.
Any other comments, Rebecca?
Nobody is raising their hand that I see.
All right, I'll go ahead and close public comment. And come back to council. Yeah, it's in the staff report, Vice Mayor Agramonte. It looks like it's between $23,000 and $38,000 to hold a special election.
I'll make a comment.
Go ahead.
I support selecting someone in lieu of holding an election because of the short period of time and the expense of having an election. For starters, I mean, there's other things we could talk about the process, but I guess maybe at the outset we could figure out if people wanted to have an election or select somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think an appointment, money issues right now are very serious, and I don't want to be part of spending more of precious dollars.
I totally agree with that, Marilyn. We save a penny.
Yeah, I think saving, close to $40,000 is prudent right now. Also, I think the expediency of getting another person on council is crucial too. We don't want to wait, to process an election. It looks like it's the next scheduled election, which I think might be in November or whenever the recall one happens. So I just think I'd rather just get somebody on council now, especially since there's a desire on council to do that. So my view, I would also support an appointment.
Okay, and then my next comment would be, I think we should have a short period for people to turn in a basic application, which would be like similar to our commission application. Maybe that can be adapted for this, and then have a agenda item to go through the applications, interviews. I think should be in public, and then we should, if we're doing that, or questions, and then I think we should pick. That's the process I would suggest, but I'm open to hearing whatever anyone else thinks.
Do you have ideas about this as well?
Yeah, Dave, you went through this in Healdsburg, right?
Go off mute there. Yeah, yes, and the council did it similar to where you're headed. What you might want to do is designate two of you to work on, say, the application, as Councilmember Harrington notes, because you might want to ask a number of questions that may be a little bit different than those that are asked in the application, in the commission application.
Did we get a copy of the Healdsburg questionnaire?
Sure, yeah.
Do you know people in Healdsburg?
I know a few. I can find them.
Okay, good.
David,
this is a note. We do have, oh, sorry, Kathleen, we do have several samples from other cities that have gone through this and have council member applications that we can supply as well.
Oh, okay, thanks. That would be
Councilmember
great.
Gay.
Oh, yeah, just a question. Do we need to set up a ad hoc committee or just like actually, because right now we just only in 4 people, or it could be either easy or simple, or.
I guess I was thinking, like I thought too, maybe we should have an ad hoc, but I was suggesting the whole council because it's so important to each of us, you know, that we would each probably want to do our own independent diligence about the applicants. That's why I didn't suggest an ad hoc, but I'm open to it if you think it's a good idea.
I think the ad hoc's about developing a questionnaire, not.
Right.
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't go any further than that, but I think you're right. Developing the questionnaires, it helps us bring it to you one meeting sooner than otherwise.
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
So I would be in support of, yeah, so I think there's broad agreement, I'm hearing broad agreement from council that we support a, you know, basically 100% agreement that we support an appointment situation similar to the planning commission, but maybe we'd like to see see some other kind of applications and what that process looked like, specifically with Fieldsburg and the other things that our city clerk Barr can bring to us, Rebecca Barr can bring to us. She's got, you know, good relationships with city clerks around the state, so I think that'll be really useful. Sounds like there's support for an ad hoc. Am I hearing support for an ad hoc to develop this questionnaire?
Yeah, I support
Okay.
it.
Great.
And I'd be willing to be on it. I don't know who wants to be on it, but I'd be happy to.
I would love to be on it as well.
Oh, okay. Because I have found I'm better at firing than hiring, so I differ. Sorry.
Okay. So I'll make a motion that we approve, we direct staff to pursue the process of appointment, that we develop an ad hoc consisting of myself and Councilmember Harrington, and that we also direct staff to reach out and bring examples from other cities to that ad hoc questionnaire, and then that ad hoc will bring the kind of ideas for questions and a sample questionnaire to council for approval.
I second that.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Roll call vote.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
We need it.
Vice Mayor,
What?
Did we already have public comment?
Jeff something, yeah.
No.
Jeff's here to tell us our motion's wrong. Typical Jeff.
Vice Mayor Agramonte,
Aye.
Councilmember Dean,
Aye.
Mayor Harvey.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 401.
Just for the record, Rebecca was noting to me that the actual government code requires that the letter be submitted to the city clerk. So I wanted to make sure that has to be a letter and it goes to city clerk. So we'll
Okay.
City clerk.
And then
I was saying that the letters I was saying should be submitted to the ad hoc were the ones from the other places, the applications.
I got you. I'm sorry. This would be the person resigning their letter.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Sorry. Just cool.
It's government code 1750.
I love that. That's probably one of my favorite government codes.
I know Jeff was wondering.
And then just a follow-up question. So in terms of the timing of putting together the questionnaire, when do you think you could get us the sample materials so that we could meet?
Meaning within days. But again, it'd be nice to have the vacancy date set too. So ideally, we'd work with the ad hoc committee and there'd be something on February 1st. That's a little tight, but where you would approve the process and the questionnaire, and then out it would go for us.
February 1st is the ad hoc meeting or the city council meeting?
City council meeting.
Okay, so prior to February 1st, Mayor Harvey and I would have the documents and figure out whatever.
Right.
Recommendations.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
I like it. Cool.
I like
Let's get
it
it done.
too.
Great.
Great.
All right. Okay. Council member reports or comments?
Well,
Good.
From Zero Waste, we actually met this morning at 8 a.m. God knows why, but we did. And so the decision from the board was to vote yes on amendment of the ordinance to prohibit use and sale of disposable food, service, ware, and other products. They have another another element that could be, they would like to have removed from the plastic, the ware that people use in takeouts, especially now it's become more dangerous. They're called PFAS, and they want to be able to prohibit that. That's an additional restriction for restaurants and takeout. McDonald's has already started it. So right now there really is no enforcement. They will pass this, but they believe because of the situation that restaurants are in, it's a very difficult time to put this regulation on people, on businesses. So they think they want to pass the ordinance because they feel that it's important, because it affects it damages the quality of compost. So, but it's something that will be gradually brought into the forefront. That's it.
That's a great move. PFAS is a really, really horrible chemical, and it never breaks down. And it's literally been found in the blood of children, of babies, in every country in the world. And it's in Teflon and everything else. It's just a nasty, nasty chemical.
So that's it for me.
Great.
I have a quick comment.
Go for it. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say my comment is that I watched the inauguration today, and I was so moved by everything that was said. And I really hope that the next 4 years is a, much more calm time. And can't remember which, there's a Sonoma City Council member who always is talking about Sonoma County City Council member was always talking about politics is best when it's boring. And I hope to God that we have an extremely boring next 4 years. So.
I like it. I'd like to report, I had a meeting with the mayor's meeting. So it was all the mayors from Sonoma County, and last Thursday, and we discussed vaccines and met with the county kind of vaccine team. And so I know a lot of us are getting questions. The basic kind of rundown from what I heard, and I know Dave, I really appreciate your updates as well, is that you're going to be getting in Sonoma County, the primary place to receive your vaccine is going to be with your medical provider. So if you have a primary care doctor, that's who's going to come through. Or if you have health insurance, that's who it's going to come through. For folks without health insurance, checking in with 211, that's a local number you can call, both in English and Spanish. They'll connect you with a service provider that will be doing vaccinations throughout the county. There is desire on the part of the county to put a site here in Sonoma Valley. They haven't determined the site yet, but there's a number that you're looking at. You can probably guess some of the sites. There's also a mobile one. There's a big effort to reach out to farm workers and ag workers once we have the vaccines that are necessary in order to kind of move to tier 1B. The one issue that's being seen in the county is there just isn't a lot of vaccines that are coming in. The week that we talked, there was only, I think, 35 or 3,700 vaccines that Sonoma County had received. Remember, it's 2 doses. So really, really slow moving. And LA County had received something like 60,000. And so you imagine, they've got millions of people that live there. Right now, it's moving really, really slowly across the country. But hopefully, as Amy said, we got a new administration that's taken in. It seems like the Biden administration takes this stuff really, really seriously and wants to move. And so hopefully we'll see a better distribution soon. And always expectations that it'll ramp up. But right now, sit tight, contact your primary care doctor. If they don't know anything about it, it's probably because information's coming. The focus right now is to vaccinate people who are frontline healthcare workers who can then be people who will do vaccinations. So people like firefighters, EMTs, nurses, doctors, police officers, dentists, all types of people that can administer vaccines or they're trying to get the vaccine out to them first. And that's kind of.
How about 65 years older?
Yeah.
Yeah, 65 years older, because as far as I know, our county has no any specific, the websites for them to register. Other counties already put on the website. So the residents in the local here, I have the 2 friends living in the city limit. They just ask me this kind of question. Why? Yeah, it's not fair for them, they said. I said, no, we have some issues.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's some places where the county's behind other counties on this. I heard from a friend in Napa County, and they're already doing some amount of agricultural workers over there. I think one of the reasons they're not putting out a ton of information and registration is they don't want people, having, I think the idea is right or wrong, but the idea is you don't want people that are flooding the lines and trying to call and get in before they have the vaccines that are coming in. But simply there just aren't enough vaccines in Sonoma County right now. We don't have enough vaccines to offer it. And for 65-year-olds, they should be contacting their insurance company and saying, hey, I want to make sure I'm in line. I've talked to a couple of people that have been able to get in contact with their hospital or their primary care doctor, especially if they have, really honestly, it's when they have big insurance companies like Kaiser or like a Blue Cross, that they're able to, a couple of people have been able to get vaccines, but it's not super smooth right now. But it should be coming through your primary care doctor. And hopefully once we're getting more than 3,500 per week coming into the county, we'll be able to ramp up and offer it to people. Because I know my parents have the same questions, and I'm getting emails and calls from a lot of our constituents as well. Yeah.
So, Mr. Mayor, I spoke to Dave Kiff, probably, I would say Wednesday, maybe Friday or earlier this week. I did call Kaiser, who was our provider, and I was on the phone for 3 hours, but we did get an appointment for Sunday.
Yep.
For
Nicely done.
Oh, good. Pretty soon everyone can hug Madeline again.
I'll be like the good luck bunny or something.
With a mask.
With a mask.
Good update.
Very good. All right, cool. Dave, you got any updates?
I did have one briefly. I know we're being cognizant of the time here, but I had asked Chief Rodriguez to give you guys an update on enforcement of loud mufflers. I was going to pop it into this little section. So I'm going to turn it over verbally to Chief Rodriguez. And Rebecca's going to help me there.
I got you.
The chief here?
Hey.
How's the chief? Hey.
Hey, good evening. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Thank you, council members and vice mayor and Mayor Harvey for having me today. Really quick here. We've been having pretty good luck with those loud mufflers and giving out citations. We ended up towing 2 vehicles here in December. Sergeant Baraz obviously was our traffic officer for 8 years before he got promoted to sergeant, so he knows a little bit about vehicles and the vehicle code, which is as big as the Bible. But he did the towing. He identified those vehicles obviously by the loud exhaust, pulled them over 2 different occasions, inspected the vehicle. Mufflers were missing, so they had a straight pipe from basically the engine all the way out to the end of the vehicle, which makes a loud noise, obviously. So both those cars were towed. We've given a total of 9 citations. And once we get out of this COVID thing, we're going to put all our deputies through a CHP training class where they'll be able to inspect vehicles and hopefully get them to, there's a special citation you can give out, especially when they modified those mufflers that way, where they have to have a referee state inspection, and basically they have to pay for all the cost, and they can only drive the car for I think 15 days to get it done. After that, it won't be drivable in the state of California. So once we get all that training and all our deputies get that training, I think it's going to help us even better to protect our community from loud noises, especially those loud mufflers. So that's pretty much it for my update.
Thank you, Chief. I really appreciate it. And if the traffic law is a Bible, then Sergeant Baraz should be a pastor, because he really knows that thing front to back. And appreciate you getting our rest of our deputies trained. I hope that happens. And this is a major concern in our community. So thanks for the update, and thanks for all the good work that you guys do over there.
Thank you for having me.
Can I ask a quick question? If
Yes.
people contact us and are concerned about it, do you want us to direct them to you guys? Do you want us to answer, or how would you like us to respond? Because it comes up, we get emails pretty regularly about it.
Yeah, and if you send me those emails, we'll direct them to our staff, and that way they
Okay.
know that we still have to keep enforcing. Because if we don't hear from the public, should actually be contacting us directly. That way, we can hear directly from the public. Not that your voice doesn't count, but officers see that when people are coming to them and complaining, then they want to do something about it. When they see the boss or the bosses complain about something, they're like, it's just the bosses, right?
Yeah.
And so if we see those complaints directly to us, then they're going to go out there and do something a lot faster. Not that your voices don't count, but it's just that mentality, right? It's just, it's just the bosses complaining.
So Chief, what is the direct email address then for people?
Just to my email. You guys should have my email, right? Yes,
I do.
think.
But should we give them, should we forward what they send us, or should we give out an email to the public?
Well, if they send us that email at the city police, I think it's citypolice.org or something, or I think we have that one. We get that and I forward that.
Okay.
So if it comes from the public to us in that email, then I forward that to the deputies. That way they know it's continuing. But for the most part, I don't know if you're still getting complaints. We got a letter of thank you from one of our residents, thanking us for doing something about the loud mufflers, that they had noticed a significant change on Broadway.
Yeah.
So that was that was nice to know that we're making a difference.
Yeah, I've noticed it,
Yeah.
a lot. So thank you. Yeah.
I've noticed it too. I hear it a lot on West Napa late at night. It's good.
Thank you so much, Police Chief.
Thank you. And we'll meet soon.
Meet you in person someday.
Yes.
I will visit you. Yeah, thank you.
It's police@sonomacity.org.
Great.
Okay.
That's the email.
So that's the email we should give out, is police@sonomacity.org. Let's not give out Orlando's personal email.
It's fine. You can.
Only for thank you notes.
It's very easy. It's orlando.rodriguez@sonomacounty.org. So it's in the public website, I think. So
I like
it's in my business card.
For complaints, it'll be police at Sonoma City, and then for compliments, we'll do your personal.
Awesome.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much, Chief. I appreciate it. And thank you, Dave, for bringing Chief on. And again, thanks for all the great work that you and your deputies do. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. City Attorney Jeff Walter.
Nothing tonight.
Congrats on your merger.
Thank you.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's a huge deal.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the power vested in me by the City of Sonoma, I declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a wonderful evening.
Have a good evening.
Good night now.
Good night.